You know, one of the areas that you can apply the behavior sciences to is building a practice. Now, building a practice, building a team, building a company, building an organization, really the same elements all apply. You have to understand what your needs are in terms of the competencies that a person has to have to support what you're trying to do. So if you need a good assistant, you have to know that they have to have certain competencies, and you work towards seeing and screening through competencies to make sure that they can do the job, right? Well, unfortunately, more often than not, people get through because they can do the job, technically speaking. But they leave. They leave after 6 months. They leave after 9 months. They leave for different reasons. And the reasons they leave typically are behavioral. They're not comfortable with their manager. They're not comfortable with the producer. The producer doesn't know how to communicate with them. The producer doesn't know how to motivate them. Now, when the producer takes charge of this and understands that the behavioral component is that critical through education, through doing assessments, things like that, coaching can help, they can now create a more effective practice. They can reduce attrition. They can improve people's motivation, get people excited about working with them instead of hoping they don't come back to the office, which all too often happens. A lot of times high-end producers, and I don't blame them because they're out there doing their jobs. They're meeting clients, they're doing fact finders, they're coming back and putting together proposals, and they don't even understand their own impact on their own team. And all too often the team will come to me as a coach and say, I wish Joe would understand us. I wish Joe would stop changing things on us. I wish Joe would treat us a little bit more respectfully. And over time, when you don't manage your people effectively like that, they get discouraged, their motivation goes down, their effectiveness gets impacted, and eventually they leave. So it's very important, first of all, to understand what your needs are as a producer and understanding the type of people you need to surround yourself with. Now, the important part of that is knowing that the person that you're surrounding yourself with doesn't have to be like you. In fact, you really want somebody who's not like you. But that may not be so easy to deal with from time to time. If you want a good analysis done, and you're a hard-charging person who's bottom-line oriented, well, you don't want somebody doing your proposals with that same composition. You want somebody who's detail-oriented, who likes to sit down and analyze information, who thrives on it. And that's one of I think, the issues in the industry that's never been addressed that effectively. A lot of times they'll hire a producer, an agent, and you'll find out that he can't prospect. And you just beat them up. You gotta go out and prospect. And when I look at their profile, I'll go, they're never gonna prospect. They're not prospectors. It's not in their chemistry. It's not in that behavior pattern. So you really have to know what you're looking for, and you really have to understand that everybody has their strengths. Now, some of those people now could be great staffers, because we used to call it in the technology industry, we had hunters and farmers. And I used to look at the people and say, well, this person is really good at opening up accounts. This other person was really good at the analysis component. So we combined the two. And I think there's a tremendous opportunity in this industry for that, to take people who are very good technically, who believe in what they're doing, who've gone through the education process, but they're not good at prospecting, to team them up with somebody else who has a competency of behavioral strength that they don't have. Now, when you put those two together, that's when 1 and 1 can equal 3. Because not only do you as a producer get rid of all the things you hate to do, but they do things they like to do. So not only do they like working, they like doing, they are more motivated, because when people are matched incorrectly, it drains them. And eventually, that draining is energy. And eventually it affects their performance, and it affects their ability to do their job effectively. So what we try to do is help people make sure from the beginning, you're designing your team the proper way. You're thinking about the competencies, you're thinking about their behaviors, you're thinking about their attitudes and values, and you have a process that enables you to screen out people that don't match up properly. One of the great challenges of leadership today is getting people to step up to the plate, to bring their businesses to the next level, and that's in some cases a cultural change. Whether we add values to the culture issue, sometimes you don't have to. It's really about change. It's about asking people to do something different. Now, the interesting part, it's the same challenge we have with clients. So first thing I think a leader needs to do is look at their people like they're their clients. And if they change that perception first, they'll have a chance to get people to literally participate in the change, want the change, endorse the change. And over the years, I've had to do a lot of that work with some major corporations that were very successful companies. In fact, it's the hardest thing is to get a successful company to get to the next level. Because the first thing they're going to say to themselves is, why would we want to change? Well, my older brother worked for IBM for 30 years. And IBM went through that. Great company that it was, guaranteed employment, everybody was comfortable, they were a dominant player in their market. And about 15 years ago, IBM was in trouble. They laid off 100,000 people because they didn't effectively implement change. People who said, well, we're IBM. Why do we need to change? And the market changed, new technology came in, new competition came in, clients' needs changed, and they didn't adapt. Now, fortunately, they had to bring in, to get the change implemented, somebody who wasn't even technical at all. He had no computer background at all. Gershwin. And he came from Procter & Gamble. And he came in and he surrounded himself by technically competent people, but he went out and he found out and he asked the questions and he was able to shift their thinking because he wasn't conditioned to think the same way. So change is a difficult issue to implement. Now, to implement change effectively, a lot of times good leaders who have been successful rush the process. They're so excited, they want it done, and they get out there, and then they start to see the resistance that builds up. So the fact is, to implement change, you have to really go out to the people that you have to affect. You've got to understand their behavior styles. You might find that certain people like yourself are going to be like, yeah, let's go, we want to do it, and they jump on the bandwagon real quick. But there's two styles of behavior that exist, just like clients, inside a company that resist change. And what they do, they won't tell you they resist change. They're passive resistors. Now, they can be brought along, but they can't be brought along same process that you go through with a client the same way as you would implement change if you were trying to talk to yourself. You have to understand what's important to them. You have to understand why they resist change. For example, the relator. And relators are tremendous staff people. They have tremendous people skills. They're tremendous communicators. People like them, but relators hate change. Now the fact is 40% of our population are relators. So 40% of the people that are employed typically are relators, which correlates. And so those people, without telling you, will never say, we don't agree with you. They just hunker back, let things happen, and hope that this change initiative goes away. And most of the time it does, because companies don't have the patience to do it the right way. Many years ago, I had an opportunity, I had to do a major change management function, and I was asked to do it fast. And after going through the process the second time, I came up with a saying that there's never enough time to do it right, but there's always enough time to do it over. So when you're implementing change, you have to take a certain approach. The aggregate of it is you have to sit down with people and understand what's important to them. How is this change impacting them? For a relator, as I gave as an example, they'll change, but you need to condition them a little bit further. You need to let them know why. You just can't send out a letter and say, tomorrow we're changing our strategy, or go to a meeting and pump them up and say, we're doing something new today. They need to have more understanding of what you're trying to do and how it impacts them. Because if they feel insecure about the change, what they do is become just the opposite of what you want. They become passive resistors and they get in the way. Now, the other style that's not change-oriented tends to be the analytical types. Because it's not because they don't like change and they don't agree with the change. they need more time to process. They need to understand the details. The information needs to be more accurate, needs to be more demonstrated. They just can't change for change's sake. They have to go through the analysis, like in a sales situation. When they say, I need time to think about it, they mean it. And so you have to make sure you feed them more information, you give them education, you show them the reasons why. And they'll eventually, when they see the reasons, they'll say, hey, that makes sense. We'll go that way, we'll get on board, and now you have a team of different types of people that have different strengths working together. The whole key to implementing change is unity. It really comes down to getting people on the bus, focused on a mission, a goal, but you have to approach it with each style of person differently. Some people want to see the reasons why, and they get driven by the recognition and the excitement of something new. Other people, it's, hey, it's bottom line, and let's show me the reasons why we're doing this. So just doing it for doing its sake, that doesn't make any sense to us. What's the bottom line? So you have to make sure they understand. The relators have to understand the impact it's going to have on their career, on their security. And the detail thinkers, they need to understand all the rationale behind it. And if they can see, and if you get all those people working together, each one complements each other. Each one has strengths, and together they make a very effective team.